them. Here comes Gisette. They make contact. They touch once, twice, 3 times.
Oh, trouble! Oh, no, Rocky into the wall. Big crash front straightaway. Huge crash coming into the tri-oval. No, Rocky up and into the air.
They're beating and banging. Burn on the bottom. Cosman up top.
Kaufman, I think. No! Breyer by 1/1000th of a second. Joseph now at the line. Thunhorse pulls the win out at the stripe. Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas. Get your foot down. He got it. He's got it. He's got it. The canvas is going to win.
Hello, everybody. We are still back over in Europe now for the first time this season. I'm getting my schedules all mixed up. Over here in Europe now in Germany at the Nürburgring for round number 6 of the Penguin RC Simulation SimCAR Grand Am Championship Series. And a little change of the format this week. The prototypes have gone away, but the GT3s are here to stay. Last time around was the endurance event over in Fuji, and now we head to the Nürburgring, and we're going to have some fun back to our normal format with the 20-minute sprint and the hour-long feature, and it's going to be a fun one. I'm Chad Irvine. Here with me in the booth is Sean Butler, Zach Johnson clicking all the buttons and making everything look pretty. And Sean, going back to the normal 1-hour format for the feature race, it's going to be a little different than what we saw last time around.
Yeah, a little shorter too, obviously. But I think the drivers will like it a little bit more. Maybe not the ones starting towards the back of the field, but Fuji was an interesting experience with the endurance race. The extra hour really proved that who had the longest long run speed and faster car overall, and who had the most dominant setup. So with this, a little bit short of a race, going to be a little bit more of a test to see you can get through the field efficiently, but should be welcome to these drivers here. They get to get out of here a little earlier now for this week, so they should enjoy that.
Drivers working their way through qualifying at the moment. A minute and a half left, and Taylor Carroll sits on top, followed by Blake Reynolds. Those guys in the 153-second bracket, the only two that have hit that speed. A couple of drivers that were looking good in practice, not set times. Parker White was the fastest in practice, but he did not set a time in qualifying. So we'll have to see if he turns in a good time and see where he starts on the grid. But it's going to be a fun one here. You won't see the black numbers of the prototypes taking up the top of the timing screen. Just have the blue and the red. The Pro and the AM class, both are in GT3s. But it looks like right now the top 7 are all the blue Pro category drivers from Carroll all the way down to Kingsbury.
Yeah, then you got 3 AM drivers right there. And you see on the left, Jonathan Taylor, Brock Quinn, and Justin Robichaux. So we're on board with Parker White right now. This is his qualifying lap. So he had a couple of his other laps invalidated due to some off-track issues. So we're going to see if he can put a full lap together. He's got, I believe, ahead of him, that's Justin Robichaux, a little bit further up the road. So he might, if he catches him, be able to get some slipstream to aid this lap here. But Parker White, as you said, very quick in practice, was the fastest of all the drivers in practice, not just the Porsches or not just in the Pro or anybody really. So Parker, a very, very big force to be reckoned with here in this race tonight. He's going to be my dark horse to win this thing. So if he can keep that thing out of trouble, keep it on the racetrack and stay consistent, don't be surprised if he's up there fighting for the win at the end.
Yeah, it's going to be certainly a fun race to watch as these guys wrap up qualifying, and looks like we're jumping straight into the race. So we'll go ahead then and take a look at the starting grid, where Taylor Carroll starts on pole with Blake Reynolds on the outside of row number 1. Saving Ragster Matthew Powers in row 2. Kevin Fanning and John Marshbanks. Been pronouncing that name wrong all season, but John corrected us over the couple weeks off. They got Ray Kingsbury and Jonathan Taylor row 4. Brock Quinn and Justin Robichaux on row number 5.
And row 6 sees Robert Lowry, Brian Sohn making up the 11th and 12th spots. Row number 7, Michael Guerrilla and Chris Wetz. Then you got Tim Brokaw and Lance Nasir. A bit deep in the field for Lance. He's making the transition from the prototype to the GT cars, as well as pretty much, I guess, everybody that was in the prototypes from the start of the season. So it'd be a little bit of a challenge for them. Row 9 sees Jake Robichaux and Marwin Mafta. And row 10 is Ethan Kurtz and Matt Kingsbury.
Followed by Gary Freeman and Parker White. There are row 11. Then you got Tommy Joe Valenzuela and Jack Belton. Row 12, Nate Stewart, brings up the back on row number 13, all by his lonesome. As we get set to start this race, I just want to kind of take a second to give a huge shout out to Cody Crosgrove, who's been very competitive in the season all season long. He was involved in an unfortunate accident at work during this past week and has some severe injuries that he's going to need surgery and some stuff going on. So if you don't want to push you guys donate beyond your means or anything like that, but there is a GoFundMe going for him. Just look up supporting Cody through an unfortunate accident over on GoFundMe and working to support him and his family as they go through what's just got to be a hectic week. I mean, he's got broken bones and he's going to be out of work for a while. So thoughts are with you, Cody. Hope you're doing well, and I know you're going to be watching on TV. So just want to say hi, Cody.
Cody, hope you're doing well, man. So again, you guys don't have to donate, but no, we urge you to just help them out. Anything would be very, very helpful, especially for the process for getting back to 100% for Cody. So all the best to you, Cody. Wishing the best for you, and hoping you're back out on the track with us here very soon.
There you see drivers on their out lap now, working their way towards the start finish. Only a couple corners left here. It's going to be a shorter warm-up lap, and only 20 minutes or 20 laps. It's going to be 20 minutes, I believe, is going to be the distance here. Not going to hit the lap limit. It's a 20-minute race here for this event, and it's going to be a 20-minute, and then we got a 5-minute warm-up for the drivers, and then we jump right into the action. If the pace car pulls away, and we are to green flag racing here in Germany from the Nürburgring. As the drivers set to turn into turn number 1 for the first time.
Taylor Carroll not wasting any time. A battle for second. Blake Reynolds, Savian Ragster right there. Ragster glanced to the inside, and this is the deal with turn 1, is they're almost 3 wide going through there, and it starts wide, but it narrows up very quickly as it looks like everybody's going to get through very cleanly. We make our way through turns 3 and 4 here, as it looks like Taylor Carroll's got the field covered already through the first couple corners.
Yeah, things stacking up a little accordion effect further on back, but so far everybody is clean.
Got trouble back here.
Their way down.
Gary Freeman in the 666 is off the track. There he is in the Ferrari. He's able to get back going though, no damage. If I can look and see what happened, looked like an incident just all by his lonesome there. Just got through the corner a little too
there's
hot,
huge. There's a little bit of contact though further up from Marwan Mafta. He was just involved with another car. I'll have to see. Looks like he was a little bit on the brakes. That was he just, something happened to him. He started to turn in for the corner and his car just snapped left and hit Tommy Joe Valenzuela. So both of those cars went around. That was interesting there for a moment, but looks like both cars are able to continue on with minimal damage. Don't see mistakes like that from Mafta too often, but back up front, still Carroll leading from Reynolds, and he's brought that lead almost to a second already.
It's fortunately just the heat race, so nothing too crazy about the main event coming up here in just under 20 minutes time as we come back almost to complete lap number 1. But Ethan Kurtz was the other car that was involved, so both cars don't have very much damage. They're able to keep going. So I guess if you're these guys, you're going to use the rest of this session to kind of get yourself acclimated, where you can pass, where you can throw it in, where you have to be a little more reserved. And I would say that's pretty much the goal for all these drivers here as they make their way through the final corner, and lap number 1's in the books.
And something that these guys are kind of going to be relieved about is, as they get closer and closer to the end of this race, you're not going to have to feel pressure from prototypes breathing down your neck. Yeah, of course, you will maybe towards the end of the feature have to deal with some lap traffic, but overall, I mean, these guys, I think that might make things a little bit easier. You're not having that pressure. You don't have to look out for the faster class looking, trying to make a move on you or stuff like that, because that can get pretty harrowing. That's kind of maybe some of the more dangerous parts of these, what was a multi-class series. Now, due to participation, we're down to just the single category.
And it's going to be a lot more competitive too, especially with the guys coming from the prototype class back down to GT. So it's going to be interesting to see just how the talent mixes with each other here, as we'll have guys fighting for the lead up front, and we're going to have guys fighting everywhere pretty much all throughout these races. So we have another one around. Looked like Brian Sohn got very loose in the 03 car. He's able to gather it. That was a hell of a save. If we can get a replay of that, that was took that Mercedes for, that thing was wrecked going into the corner back there.
Yeah, speaking of replays, let's go back to the 2 instances we saw earlier on. We'll start here. This is Gary Freeman on lap 1 in the 666, and just the back end stepped out. That you're kind of cresting over the hill. Their car is going to want to get light and step out. The other one, this is Marwan Mafta. Look at the Cisco car. Anyway, as you get into the braking zone here, it's just he got his right side tires onto the grass, and that unfortunately sent the car just straight left. And unfortunately collected Tommy Joe in that one. But it looks like the contact was minimal, and he continued on, take a little shortcut there.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to do that, at least at speed, but he's able to keep that out. We saw a lot of that at Fuji. We learned, a lot about that actually at Fuji. So, and there's a recap of the incident I just mentioned there with Brian's zone. He got the grass again. So it seems like if you get these, any part of your tires, especially going into the corner under braking in the grass, it's almost guaranteed to lose traction to go around. So you got to think of that grass as ice out there, and one thing to avoid for sure. But these guys doing a really good job to not have a serious wreck in these cars. Everyone's able to keep going.
Yeah, Matthew Powers had gotten by Ragster for third, but then he went wide. He was a little too late on the brakes and went into the grass. So fortunately able to keep it on the track, didn't technically lose any spots because Ragster basically just took his spot back. But yeah, Ragster is still going to be in third. And Ragster and Reynolds, those were the two guys that were the consistent front runners and the consistent guys that would show up over in the prototype category. So they're jumping into the GT3s and just starting right where they left off at the front of the field.
Yeah, that's a pretty familiar territory for those guys, so it shouldn't be all too unfamiliar. But it's going to be really fun to see, especially with the guys starting at the back of the field. We touched on Parker White during qualifying. We expected him to be up there, but he's not. Lance Nasir is going to be another guy that I'm going to be watching out for. So these guys are going to have to cut their way up through the field, and they got to realize they don't have those ultra strong prototypes anymore to do it. So we got to see how fast the speed is. So we're currently on board now with Parker White, still kind of just chilling back here. He's not too far back, currently in the 14th position, but he's finding out how to pick his way up through the field slowly but surely.
Yeah, top 7 still running as they started. Kingsbury had lost a spot to Taylor Carroll, but he recently got that back on this last lap. But now further back, these guys further towards the back, we used to have an invert in this series. I think it'd be the top 15 positions or so would invert their position. It made for some interesting racing, and maybe now that we've gone back to a single class, that's going to be possible. But for the time being, these guys are going to start right where they left off when we go from the sprint to the feature, and they're going to have to make up as many positions as they possibly can. And that's kind of why this is, it only pays half points, of course, for the sprint, but it's so important because it does set your qualifying position. As we see move here for the lead, Blake Reynolds to the inside around Taylor Carroll.
Carroll tries the crossover there, thinks better of it, so move Blake to P1. No surprise there. It seems like he's adapting to the new car quite well for him. So Blake Reynolds picking up right where he left off in the prototype class. So we're going to take a look a little bit further back. So it looks like Matthew Powers has got a big challenge here from John Marshbanks here in the 30. And right there, Kevin Fanning in the Ferrari in the 441 right there as well. So we've got a nice little three-way battle for fourth here.
And Kevin, I've seen him race for a couple of years now, and he's one of those drivers. He's very methodical. He can kind of think things through and look a couple corners ahead, and he's just there licking his chops, waiting for these guys. If you bang doors just a little bit, if somebody runs just a little bit wide, I'm going to be right there to capitalize. And I'm sure he's thinking just do what he can to keep the car on track and hope that these guys make a mistake up in front of him, because they're battling pretty hard here for the 6th spot or 5th spot.
And finding out exactly how much they can push their car in traffic. We just saw them come through. That is the Goodyear. I'm going to say that's the Kerry. I'm not sure if that's pronounced correctly. It's K-E-H-R-E on the track map there, but Blake Reynolds put it better. It's the NASCAR corner just because it's banked. So I guess we might call it that throughout the broadcast. But this is a very draft-dependent track here as we look back up at the front here with Blake Reynolds leading. But a lot of slipstream opportunities, especially in these cars. The draft is very, very strong. A lot of straightaways, a lot of quick corners. So as much as, we like to say the road courses take a whole lot of skill to go around, there's a lot of momentum to be gained at a track like this. So if you can stay close to a guy, you're not out of it by any means. As we're looking back over the rear wing of Blake Reynolds, our leader, as he comes across the line, we are coming just over 12 minutes remaining here in the heat race.
And I think that, this is one of those tracks where it's the perfect mix. You talk about the long straightaways and the slipstream, but it's also, you're not draft locked like you might see at like Indianapolis or, at Daytona. You're not completely reliant on draft the entire time around. There's some very technical corners, some very setup dependent corners where, you're not only relying, you're not just seeing a freight train of 20 cars. These guys are getting themselves broken up as Reynolds and Carroll already have a 1.5 seconds to Ragster, and Ragster's already out of the slipstream range.
Yeah, and you got to be real. I think you have to be about within 1.2 seconds, I believe, in these cars, maybe a little bit more because the wing pokes a lot bigger hole in the air than normal cars. But it is so important to be in the slipstream with everybody in these cars, just so you have a chance. Rackster is kind of feeling like he's in a little bit of purgatory right now, just sitting there. He's got a big gap in front of him, big gap behind him, which is a good thing. It gives you a little bit of a sense of relief. You don't have to push the car or anything. You don't have anyone to worry about around you. But at the same time, you want to be up there duking it out with the guys ahead of you.
Yeah, and as a lot of circuits on this schedule this season are, this is, of course, an FIA Grade 1 circuit. So there are a lot of areas with either paved runoff or just a lot of room if you make a mistake. So you'll see drivers maybe try to capitalize on that a little bit, taking advantage of the 1X incidents and, just kind of pushing the car maybe in areas you normally wouldn't, especially that chicane at the end of the lap where we've seen guys just completely cutting the grass and if it's a risky move to do because that lost traction. But, these guys, as you see a pass further on back, Brian Sun peeking out of line, he is not going to get the move done there. But these guys really, they're able to cut that chicane pretty good at the end of the lap and make things interesting if they can keep the car under because it's pretty risky to do.
They come through the Vidal chicane is what that's called there as you're looking on with Parker White. Again, Parker started way back in 22nd. He's currently up to 13th right now on the grid, so a near plus 10 for Parker White in just under 10 minutes, which is a pretty crazy think about, especially with that. So as I said, Parker White, when the green flag drops on the main event, is going to be one to watch. Right behind him, Lance Nasir as well. He's very, very quick in these cars, as we saw at Fuji. He's got to keep that thing out of trouble. He had a little bit of a couple spots where kind of did some damage to himself there, and he was one of the guys that caught the grass a little bit to get his car out of shape. So we're going to see if he can keep that thing clean and on the racetrack for sure. And if he does, he's definitely going to be at the front. As you mentioned, the runoff areas, this part right here actually coming out of the AMG arena is one of the, I guess, the most infamous spots. There was a time here in iRacing where if you clip that runoff area just a little bit, it would actually give you a slowdown. So I think they've since fixed that, but it's something that these guys have to be mindful of when they're using these runoff areas. Yes, they're there, but iRacing kind of penalizes you with one off here. That's Matt Kingsbury in the 21 Audi.
Yeah, we don't see him make mistakes too often. When we do, it's because he's a little too aggressive as he rejoins the track. Some damage to his left front. And the fortunate thing for him is this is only the sprint. So after 9 more minutes, he can get a brand new race car and be pointed the right direction with no damage.
Take a guess of what caused this one. I'll give you one guess as to what happened here. By himself, grass.
That's I think the same spot that we saw the contact for. Oh, and he just caught that tire barrier at the exact wrong spot. But I'm pretty sure that's the same spot where Mofta clipped the grass earlier to send his car veering to the left. So drivers have to be wary of that. There is some curbing there, but you just dip it a little bit out too far to the right, and that's going to send the car around.
Yeah, a little bit of a Parker White just lost a spot to Lance Nasir. Wonder what happened there. Is very slow coming out of one of the corners. So maybe had to slow down, let Lance go, but he falls in right behind him. But these guys making their way up through the field very well to start this race. Parker White is, of course, the biggest mover so far, but other guys I'm seeing making their way up. Lance Nasir is up +3 right now, started 16th up to 13th. So these guys are proving you can make these passes happen. You just have to know when to time them and how to safely do it. And so Parker's getting a very good idea of what he has to do for the main event. But up front, back of the lead, Blake Reynolds, just in familiar territory. But I'll give credit to Taylor Carroll. Taylor has not let Blake out of his sights. He is staying right on the rear bumper of that 66.
Now, speaking of Taylors, Jonathan Taylor, you're watching here in the 77. He is leading the AM category, and he's feeling the pressure. He's been feeling it for quite some time from Justin Robichaux and Brock Quinn. These guys have just been going at it since the drop of the green flag, and they're all still right there. You see them 8th, 9th, and 10th overall. That's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in the AM category. And Jonathan Taylor, he's had a couple weeks off here in NFL action, but he's been kicking some butt here in the Pegwood RC Championship.
Not the same Jonathan Taylor, but it was a very good joke there inside. I don't have him on my fantasy team though. I probably should, but I have a Dalvin Cook and Nick Chubb, so I think I'm doing okay there in the running back position. It looks like our Jonathan Taylor maybe went a little bit too hard going into the Ravenel curve there, and that allowed Robichaux to kind of gain a little bit more ground. So keep an eye out on these. It seems like these three, whenever they're in the same race, are all together at some point in the AM class. They're always right next to each other. battling for the win, it seems, for the AM class, as we're looking on board with Robichaux here, going to the Vidal chicane, turns 14 and 15, making their way up to the Hyundai N curve, I should say, right here, as the final corner to the front straightaway. So these three, as you have another one off back here, that's Lance Nasir. What in the world happened to Lance?
I'll have to go back and check the replay because that just really seemed to come out of nowhere.
Yeah, it looks like he was going through the Vidal chicane and the rear end just kicked out. We'll get a replay here as we take a look on board with Lance. And I think the rear end just comes out from underneath him, maybe going into the corner too hard and maybe
he just overdrove it into the chicane, and unfortunately just no way to recover it as he does barely tap the wall. But the worst thing for him is that he's going to lose a ton of time, and he's not going to have time to recover as we're closing in on 5 minutes remaining here in the sprint.
I tell you, we got a group of cars right here behind John Marshbanks here battling for fourth. So Matthew Powers here, Kevin Fanning, Ray Kingsbury up here. So this is the closest battle on the track and most entertaining one for sure, as all these guys are in contention to get that fourth spot.
These sprint races kind of remind me of just karting at your local, karting center. You got the really fast guys that pull away right out of the gate, but then you've got these guys all in the mid-pack that think, I'm just going to battle the entire time, not let anybody pass, but not going to be able to make any moves of my own. And, you're all just kind of hurting each other's time around the track. But for now, Marshbanks has done a good job leading this train as he continues to hold on to that fourth spot.
And Kingsbury right behind Kevin Fanning. He's looking to the inside of him a couple of times here as we are working our way to 5 minutes remaining here in the heat race. After this, we'll have a short little warm-up and go straight to the main event. But these guys getting some really good intel for the main event here as we take a look at Brock Quinn sneaking by Justin Robichaux there to take over ninth. So a lot of these guys knowing what it takes to make up spots, where their cars are good, where they're not so good, and where they can make their moves. So if there's one benefit to the heat races, it's definitely that. And a lot of guys that started further towards the back are figuring that out very easily.
Yeah, Ray Kingsbury started 7th, dropped to 8th, but finally got back by Taylor in the opening couple of laps. And ever since then, he's kind of just been settled in right on the back of Kevin Fanning. And all of these drivers really just... you see a couple of teammates here kind of battling just a little bit, but, this is that battle once again. I think this is Taylor and Quinn now as Justin Robichaux dropped back to 10th. And I think, did something happen to Justin? Because he's lost quite a bit of ground.
I think he's maybe overcooked the tires a little bit. The rear tires maybe don't have as much grip as they once did earlier in the race, so maybe he kind of overcooked those to see how much he can push it. But he has lost a considerable amount of time right now, almost a second slower than teammate Brock Quinn there as we take a look just coming out of here. This is the battle I was looking to see here with all these guys. You see Marshbanks there, Matthew Powers, Kevin Fanning, Ray Kingsbury clinging on there. So this is the best battle right now on the track. And as Savian Ragster leading this whole thing in that Lamborghini, he's got to be kind of shaking right now with all those cars in his mirror. He's got a lot of good drivers to hold off behind him.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch how, these guys, they're all driving different cars, but they make them kind of do the same thing. And they've got that balance of performance on iRacing for these cars settled out very well. I know Christian Chandler, the one that kind of helps make that those decisions on the power and everything like that. He works very hard to get these cars, all kind of level on even footing. Some of them have advantages at certain tracks, but overall, they find a way to level themselves out over the course of an entire lap around just about any circuit.
Coming down to just under 3 minutes to go here. As again, we should reiterate, this is an open setup league, so most leagues are fixed setups usually, but with this one, it is an open setup league, so these drivers all are on different setups. As we have more trouble back here, that's Gary Freeman again.
It's the second time he's gone around here in the sprint.
He still hasn't really got it there. He's pointing the wrong way again. Was this another instance of that car going through the AMG arena has just not handled well, as he finally is able to keep it going. And it was another instance. He comes off of the final corner, turn 4, and that thing just doesn't have any rear grip for whatever reason. So he's really got to address that for the main event.
Yeah, maybe just a click extra the wing in the back to maybe try to stop it from stepping out, but have to wait and see there because that's going to kill a straight line speed. And I think that something I've kind of realized for Gary is he just kind of using this as a learning experience. As a 71 now around, that's Chris Wetz. And we've seen him kept it clean for the most part so far today, and unfortunately, that's the first time we've seen him around, but I'm really digging that paint job.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a different course for Wets. Usually has just that white and green 71. He was complaining about a big lack of grip in practice before the heat started, and we were seeing it right there. As there was another instance where he just kind of maybe cut the curb a little too much, got a little bit of the grass with the left side tires in the left-hand corner, and that thing went around on him. So if you want to spin, now's the time to do it, whereas there's pretty much not a whole lot of repercussions. You get a lot of intel for the main race, but definitely not what Chris Wetz wants to do here, as we see more battling going on as they head into the final couple of corners. But these guys just flying around the track right now. I think they got these cars dialed in.
By the way, we saw Matt Kingsbury hit the tire barrier and outside of turn 4 a couple of laps ago. He is now parked it in the pits, taking repairs. I think that he's set to just start shotgun on the field here once we get to the feature race.
Final lap here, 1 lap to go. Blake Reynolds takes the white flag. And I give a call to Taylor Carroll again. I mentioned it earlier, as they're still fighting behind them, as you see all these guys going into the corner fighting for 4th. But Taylor has done a really good job of keeping that within Blake Reynolds' drafting range. So might be a car to watch for that 420 machine as we look at the Lamborghini and Raxter go way wide coming through the AMG arena.
They were 2 by 2 with Ragster, Powers, Fanning, and Kingsbury, with Marchbanks right there as well. Marchbanks has gotten by Ragster for 3rd, but these guys all still line astern as they work their way now down the back straightaway and closer to that final chicane. But man, it's just such a fun track to watch these guys lap because they really tick off quick, and I'm surprised the sprint is almost already over.
I mean, this is a very fun track. I mean, it's not too long, not too short. It's got a lot of straightaways, as we said, but I don't know. I don't know about you, but I'm a big fan of banked corners on road courses. I don't know why. They just make it a lot more fun, especially with all the chicanes and quick corners. So this track is definitely a boatload of fun. It's got its technical point in the middle of the track, but everything else is just pure speed. As speaking of speed, Taylor Carroll has shown the speed on this final lap. He might challenge for the heat win here if Blake Reynolds isn't careful.
Yeah, he's trying to. You see him there, just tucked up under the wing, trying to get every bit of slipstream that he possibly can as he continues to work his way around. They've only got a couple corners left here. They're going to go through this chicane, and they got one final corner through the Hyundai N curve.
Oh, we got a great chicane.
He's almost there. Got a great launch off. I don't think he's going to do it. He's right there, though. But no, it's going to be Blake Reynolds off the final corner. Carroll tries to take the slipstream, but cannot do it. And it's going to be, oh, look at this battle off the final corner, though, for 3rd.
Well, that's a photo finish right there. I think they're going to give it to Marchbanks in the 30 car. But, man, that's a preview of what we're going to see here in the main, because everyone just running like crazy in these. There you see the rest of the drivers coming on through here. Tim Brokaw make his way across the line just behind these guys. But Blake Reynolds, familiar territory, P1 here for the Porsche.
Yeah, after 20 minutes of racing, that sprint was decided by 0.2 of a second. Reynolds over Carroll, followed by Marchbanks. Then we got Ragster and Powers wrapping up the top 5. And so far, there you see it with Kevin Fanning, Ray Kingsbury, Jonathan Taylor winning the AM class there in the sprint, followed by Brock Quinn and Parker White wrapping up the top 10.
And there you see Parker White started 22nd, finished in the top 10. So not too shabby of a performance there. As we look at the rest, Justin Robichaux, Robert Lowry, Michael Carilla, Tim Brokaw, Brian Sohn, Tommy Joe Valenzuela, Lance Nasir, Chris Wetz, Jake Robichaux, and Marwan Mafta round out the front 20.
Well, a couple drivers left there with Ethan Kurtz taking 21st. Gary Freeman, we saw him spin a couple times, and he finished a 1 lap down. And Matt Kingsbury was the last driver to take a lap, and he unfortunately finished 3 laps down after some damage, but driver's going to get a couple of minutes to warm up here. We'll step aside for a short break and be back with some more action right here on FTF.GG. And back here in Germany from the Nürburgring, and we're taking a look at Robert Lowry, the lone Ford GT in the field. Added that one into the fray after the P217, the LMP2 cars were removed from the entry list, and great to see this car work its way around, adding one more manufacturer to the list.
It's about time. All of us are big fans of the Ford GTs here, and it's about time we got one. So drivers, you're watching this back, you're hearing this, run more of this car. We need more variety.
My favorite thing about this car is how it looks at night, though. It's got those lights on the sides and everything to make it just light up, and it really pops when you run under the dark. If only we had this car back at Fuji 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago.
It sounds pretty nice too. I think this is the older one because it sounds the new one is a V6, and this one's got more of that V8 growl to it. So I think this is the slightly older one, but nonetheless, both are very good cars. And this one, especially with the way it sounds, you'll know it's coming. You could hear it from a mile away pretty much. But they're fun to drive too. I've driven these a handful of times in the sim, and they're a blast no matter where you bring them.
Yeah, these guys got a minute left in their warm-up, and the biggest thing for these drivers is adjusting from, that they're not going to be running a full tank of fuel here for the sprint, but now they get the full tank for the feature, and of course it is a reduced full tank for drivers as they will have to make a pit stop at some point, but still that heavier fuel load does change things for these drivers, and of course we've seen them have to make strategy calls with their fuel over the last couple of races, so we continue just to watch these guys work their way around for the final time here in the warm-up, and then we're set to see 1 hour of action here from the Nürburgring.
And for those of you guys that know, more fuel, of course, you can go longer in the race than your competitors. The downside is the more weight in the car, the more speed it takes away on the straightaways, and the more oversteer you'll have coming through these corners. So you'll have to be very cognizant of that, as that's the main thing these guys will look to take care of with their setups. As the checkered flag is out on the warm-up, we are ready to go into the feature for 1 hour of racing here at the Nürburgring.
Starting lineup for the feature event will match the finishing results from the sprint that we just saw. As we get set, pace car, of course, will be set to lead the way here, followed, of course, by the winner of the sprint, Blake Reynolds and Taylor Carroll. Then you got John Marshbanks and Savina Ragster. They were battling side by side at the line. That was a very close fight for third there. You got Matthew Powers and Kevin Fanning. Ray Kingsbury, the last pro driver that's in this kind of lead pack. And then you got a couple of AMs with Jonathan Taylor and Brock Quinn. Parker White wraps up the top 10.
And we're looking through the second half of the field. Justin Robichaux 11th. Robert Lowry in that Ford we were talking about is going to roll off 12th. Michael Grillia, Tim Brokaw make up row 11. Brian Sohn and Tommy Joe Valenzuela, row number 8. Lance Nasir, Chris Wetz have to come from deep in the field from 17th and 18th. Jake Robichaux and Marwin Mofta will round out the front 20.
A couple drivers left there with Ethan Kurtz and Gary Freeman. Matt Kingsbury had to take some repairs as he wrecked out of the sprint, and I don't know if that we'll see Jack Belton or Nate Stewart. They did not take laps in the sprint, so I think that Nate Stewart said that he joined the session. He will not be racing tonight, so I don't think we'll see points out of him. But drivers, pace car starts to pull away and wait for the drivers to do the same. And it's interesting, we only have this one group now. We don't have the staggered start with the prototypes and then the GTs, and it kind of makes things anticlimactic at the start. You don't get to call 2 starts or 2 battles or anything like that. It's just, all right, we're going.
There's just a big howling pack going into the first corner, so that's the upside of it. And again, we mentioned that this is an open setup race, and we have some intel from Chris Wetz coming from the pits in the 71 car. He says his car feels like an F1 car without a front wing. It just won't turn. So that is not something you want to hear for Chris Wetz. But field makes their way to the Hyundai and curve, and we're ready to get this thing going.
And out of that curve they come side by side. And a great launch off the line for Blake Reynolds. Not a great start there from Taylor Carroll, as he's already feeling pressure. John Marshbanks, and they're side by side. They're getting ready, peaking almost to the inside. I thought about going 3 wide. There was, I believe that was Ragster, and they're all still 2 by 2 though for the time being.
They are all fanning out behind them back there. Everyone's still pretty orderly, so they're going to make their way through the AMG arena, through turns 2, 3, and 4 here, as we had one go pretty wide back there. I think that might have been Tommy Joe Valenzuela in the 021. and very close, almost contact off the final corner through the AMG Arena, but everyone makes it out safely.
That was a heck of a dive there on corner entry and able to pull it off safely. Still side by side, they tuck into line. And now the front about 12 cars or so all single file as they just work their way through. And there's so many twisty bits to this part of the track that you really have to be single file or else you're going to compromise just about everybody's time.
Got more trouble here in the AMG Arena. Gary Freeman in the 666 around again in the spot. That car just has no rear grip from what I can see. Similar stuff we saw as he wrecked a couple of times in the heat race. So tough break for Gary. He's able to keep that thing going. But back into the racing, we're taking a look. Robert Lowry in that Ford right behind Justin Robichaux in the 93 Porsche. And that Ford looks like it has a lot of speed here to start this race, especially in the slipstream. It's a lot lower than all the other cars are.
Yeah, it's so much, just so entertaining to watch these guys because they're making moves and kind of keeping themselves so close to other cars that I don't ever think there's one car around there on the left. I have to see who that was. They're covered up by the timing screen for the time being. That's maybe Savy and Ragster that's gone to the back. It is. So something happened to the driver that finished second in the sprint. He's dropped all the way back now to 21st. And he's going to have a hell of a job here in the next 58 minutes as he's going to have some work to do from the back.
And it looked like he might have caught a little bit he caught the gravel trap just coming out. I believe that was the Goodyear carry coming at turn number 8. So that's a tough break there, especially for Saving. Got a lot of time as we have more trouble. I think that's Matt Kingsbury around. There's a big crash out of turn 1. 4 cars.
There's one car that was lifted off the ground by a couple of others. It's not Matt Kingsbury's night. This is second race that he's been involved in contact with. And they're still spinning around. I'm not sure what the heck's going on back here.
That's Jake Robichaux.
It's a parking lot.
He just took out right there. Michael Grillo's involved in that, and he's going to tow. What in the world happened here? We got to take a pretty deep dive into this thing. I have a feeling that's not the only time we're going to hear the word dive with this wreck. As from what I can see, it's going to happen ahead of these guys. So it looks like Michael Guerrilla is going to...
This is Ragster's wreck. And
that's what happened.
Okay, so yeah, he just caught the dirt on the outside and unfortunately spun him around.
Again, as we saw, he got a little bit too much curbing. Now, this is Michael Guerrilla going into turn 1. This is going to be strange. The car just goes around. You see the right front tire off the ground there.
I think he took too much curbing and unfortunately just didn't hold it in place and everybody else piled in. So unfortunate for him, but he just needs to hold the brakes, let the field go by. I know that he probably would have collected one car, but it wouldn't have been as bad of an incident, I think. And well, I'm trying to figure out, did Matt Kingsbury punt the 92 there when they were trying to get back onto the track?
Certainly what it looked like.
So all of those guys have their work cut out for them. We'll have to see now for Savy and Ragster. Now, is the Lamborghini, I can't remember, is that a rear engine or front?
I believe it's mid-engine.
Okay, so that might help him at least a little bit there. He saw significant nose contact, but, maybe with it not being a front-engine car, he's got some little bit of a buffer there that it's not going to hurt his top-end speed too much.
It's weird because turn 1 has that, I don't want to call it a pothole, but it's kind of like an indent if you go too low. We're seeing a lot of guys getting out of shape if they go too low in the corner, and I think that's case in point what we saw with Michael Guerrilla there. So that's a tough break for Michael. Was very strong all season with this, but his night looks like it's going to end early as he's still on pit road.
So still Reynolds, less than a second over Carroll now, as White rounds out the podium for the time being. Still 6 cars, though, in the lead pack there with Kingsbury wrapping up that group. Taylor Carroll leads the AM category. He's currently 7th overall. Kevin Fanning fighting pretty hard with him, and these guys further on back, they've been battling all throughout this race, and even through the sprint now into the feature. And we still have 55 minutes to watch them fight it out.
Pretty much the whole lead pack is in the same draft. The front 5 cars, Reynolds, Carroll, White, Powers, and Marshbanks are right there. Then there's a little bit of a gap to Ray Kingsbury back there. As we see, they're all over the place behind here. Jonathan Taylor's actually going to go around Kingsbury going through the corner. And Kingsbury kind of dropped a little bit there. He's going to maybe let Taylor go there. That's really odd. It looked like he didn't want to lead that group.
By the way, we do have 2 retirements from the race. Both were involved in that incident that we saw earlier. Both Michael Garaglia and Ethan Kurtz both have disconnected from the session, so their race is done. This train of cars is looking through basically, was a 5th down through, probably through a 12th or 13th, it feels like. There's a bunch of cars here. And man, we talked about not being draft locked, and these guys all really seem like they want to sit in the slipstream, and you see car there in the back poking out.
This is, I believe, 5th through 13th, maybe 14th with Tim Brokaw there, but this is a humongous pile of cars right now, and you can gain a lot of spots with just one person making a mistake in this, or you could take out a lot of cars if you're the one making the mistake. As you look a little further back, Tim Brokaw looking underneath Robert Lowry in the 7, just behind at the end of this pack. He's going to fall back in line. Really big moment there for Lowry as they make their way off of turn number 4 there as they head down into turn 6 and 7 here, the left and right-handers. But these guys have to set up their passes very, very smartly, intelligently in this car. So props to these guys for keeping all this organized.
Yeah, I thought that wiggle there from the Ford was going to kind of give the position up, but fortunately enough, able to keep the car under him as he continues on, no harm, no foul. But the 111 of Brokaw still wants that 13th spot.
We're looking just a little bit further ahead of these guys. The gap between the front 2 packs is getting larger. So Marshbanks is the last car in P5, just ahead of Jonathan Taylor, as you're looking at right here, and they are driving away from these guys. So the front 5 using the slipstream to kind of stay organized while these guys battle and continue to lose time. So very smart. As we got one around Tim Brokaw again. Like another case of lack of grip as he made his way off. I believe that's turn 12 for Tim Brokaw. So that car just isn't right setup wise, and Tim knew it from the beginning. He's going to try to get that thing going, but there's just no rear grip in that 111.
Yeah, and I don't know that these cars, you can put more rear wing in it. I know that you can, I believe, in the real world, but these guys, oh man, he just caught too much curb and it upset the car. But fortunately for him, able to keep it off that inside wall. I think that's the same corner where Ragster collected the barrier hard earlier on, and Ragster's already up to 17th, so he's collected a couple spots there just from the misfortune of a couple guys around him.
Yeah, we're pretty certain that Brokaw knew, and we knew that his car was very angry from the start of this thing, so that's a tough break for Tim. That's never a lot of fun having to manhandle a car around a track the whole race. So we're not even 10 minutes into this thing, and he's going to have a long race, a long 60 minutes ahead of him. But right here, this is the battle for the 6th position here. Jonathan Taylor trying to lead these guys around. I'm sorry, this is the front of the field, actually. This is Blake Reynolds leading the field. It's Blake Reynolds, Taylor Carroll, Parker White, Matthew Powers, and John Marshbanks. 1 through 5 you see on the screen right there. And then I believe they're about 4 seconds up on the second group with Jonathan Taylor and company. So these guys doing a great job of staying together, using that slipstream, and putting some major distance on 6 to the rest of the field.
Yeah, and I think that for some of these guys, especially, being kind of maybe the front of the field, the better drivers, maybe the higher I-rating drivers, so to speak, they kind of have maybe that wits about them to say, hey, it's a long race. Let's just work together, build ourselves a gap, and then once we kind of get clear and kind of get ourselves figured out, we can maybe push it a little bit harder with each other and kind of just battle between ourselves. But White thought about making a move on Carroll there. He tucks back in line. He's all over the rear wing of Taylor Carroll, the 095 and the 420 right there, battling very hard. Is White going to poke out of line? He does. He's alongside to the inside. Under braking, can he do anything? Chopping the nose off is Blake Reynolds, but that's going to put White up in the 2nd spot.
Very good move by Parker, and we mentioned earlier about how he was kind of practicing passing in the heat race to get up to 10th, so he knows what he has to do to get by cars now. So we're going to see what he does to try to eventually get the lead from Blake Reynolds. And I was paying very close attention to John Marshbanks at the end of this group right here. He looks like he's kind of clinging on to this pack right now, as you see him just a little bit further behind Matthew Powers in the BMW. So he's got to try his best. We mentioned the slipstream is so important here. He has to stay within at least 1 second of these guys to keep that slipstream alive. And if he loses that, he's going to be in no man's land for a long time. So Marshbanks may lose this front four if he's not careful.
I mentioned Gregory and Kurtz both retiring from the race. Matt Kingsbury has decided to do the same, so he'll take the 21st position for the number 21 car. So that's going to be your bottom three there. Those three that were involved in that wreck. Car off to the side there. Was that Ragster again? I just kind of caught a glimpse of it.
That's Gary Freeman, the 660.
Oh, that's Gary Freeman again. Okay.
I think Gary's going to pull this one off as well. So that car was very slow. Did something happen to it beforehand that we didn't see? That car is very slow.
I think this is Gary Freeman in the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day for him. He's just been looping the car everywhere.
There's another instance on lap 3 for him, how he went around in turn 14 and he got a little bit of the wall, so that might be where he got his damage from. And that just takes away all the handling on those cars.
And so still Reynolds, White, Carroll, and Powers, your top four. Those four are still together. Marshbanks has lost a little bit of time to them, but he's still got about 3 or so seconds on Kingsbury, who's leading the second pack of cars. Taylor, Jonathan Taylor is leading the AM category as well. And you got a couple other drivers there that are fighting pretty good. You know, you got Fanning, Valenzuela, and Robichaux, Justin Robichaux, all there are pretty close together. This is look at Taylor in the 77, all over the back of Kingsbury. Kingsbury very loose there, but kept the car under him. That's going to open the door for Jonathan Taylor. No, he tucks back into line. Thought better of it. As we still have 47 minutes of racing, he's going to want to. You know, he thought about making that move, but realized, couldn't get it done by the time they got to the corner. He'll just take it easy.
I think he's thinking big picture here. So he's still trying to stay in line, maybe catch the guys ahead of him, but they're still losing time. So he's got about, I would say, they're about 10 seconds behind the leader, Blake Reynolds, right now. So they're going to have to do a lot to catch up. They're kind of reeling in John Marshbanks here as he and Ray Kingsbury make their way through. So. But these guys have to stay a little bit more organized because the front of the field is very close together. It's still kind of working the slipstream. So these guys have their work cut out for them if they want to make up any progress to the front.
No, I think the thing for some of these guys is, once you lose maybe that 10 seconds, that's going to be a significant amount to make up on track. You might have to find a way to do it on strategy, whether that's, pitting earlier, doing the undercut. You're not going to take tires here, though, in such a short race. So it's just going to be something with fuel and hoping that things fall your way. But, of course, this is not like the endurance event we saw last week. There's no chance at the safety car. So these drivers really just need something to fall their way. And maybe some pit road penalties for guys in front of them. But, it's a very difficult pit road to get down here. So these guys are going to have their work cut out for them, especially if you're already 10 seconds back.
Yeah, no halfway break in this one like we had at Fuji's. So these guys have to make it work on track and on the pit lane. So as we were kind of talking about earlier with John Marshbanks, he has fallen out of the lead draft. He's currently he's about 2.5 seconds. There you see him behind that 37, that green BMW you saw on your screen of Matthew Powers. So this is, he's going to be sitting here by himself for a while. It looks like he's, even in our camera shot here, it looks like he's just doing some practice laps right now, but this is going to be Kingsbury and Taylor's chance to gain a spot. So they really have to be cognizant of how they approach him. As we look further up, Parker White has not let Blake Reynolds out of his sight at all. So Parker White has passed by far the most drivers out of anybody through both races so far, and he's looking to put the cherry on top with passing Blake Reynolds for the lead.
Yeah, he's been there the whole time. He was putting up some fantastic laps in practice, and he just powers around the outside. Didn't even give him a chance to defend there for Blake Reynolds. And I think that these front four really, it's basically 2 packs of 2. You got half a second gap from Reynolds back to Taylor Carroll. And I think that, he's still in the slipstream range, but he needs to kind of keep himself there as Reynolds tries to fight back to the inside. Cannot do it. And these front four still line astern.
Yeah, we'll see if this is a strategy call from Blake, because he spent a lot of time leading, and we know Blake is very cognizant of how much fuel he uses throughout a race. So maybe he just wants to kind of sit behind Parker for a while, save some fuel in that car, and we'll know it if we see him just using the slipstream down the front stretch and not making any dives to the inside or anything. But Parker White. A very well-run race for both races so far as they clog up going into one.
Man, that scares me every time. Just different drivers, different braking markers, and different cars, and it can get a little dicey. They were all, I mean, even Taylor Carroll was stacking it in from 4 car lengths deep there. He was right on the rear wing of Blake Reynolds there mid-corner.
So as I was saying, I think Blake is going to just sit behind Parker and chill for a little bit. We have a heated battle here for 8th. Tommy Joe Valenzuela and Kevin Fanning are duking it out here out of the AMG arena. So it looks like Tommy Joe's going to get the upper hand there, but they were crossing each other over the first 3 corners as we have one off to the inside. It's Justin Robichaux back there in the 005.
Oh, man, for Justin there, he's actually in the 93, but man, he's been running such a clean race. Unfortunately, going to lose a handful of positions, drops down to 14th, and he might lose 15th to Marwan Mafta if he's not careful. He's got to get those tires cooled back down and get the car settled back under him.
Car doesn't even have a hood on it anymore, so that is damage done, I think, on that BMW. It looked like, again, just got way too far out of turn 4 there coming out of the AMG arena and just got the tires in the grass, and you're just along for the ride at that point. We've seen that so many times tonight, and it's looking like it was the same thing for Justin in that 93. That's a tough break.
Tommy Joe Valenzuela has gone around himself. There you see him. He's parked to the outside waiting for a clearing on track. He's going to get himself pointed the right direction, and he's going to rejoin safely, but unfortunately losing a ton of time. He's going to drop back to 12th.
Man, the limit is just so thin on these cars. There goes another instance of him clipping the grass coming in. I believe that was to turn 11 in the Ravenel curve. So that's a tough break for both of those guys. Pretty much similar incidents, just getting a little too far wide on the track, and it shows when they get these tires dipped below the racing surfaces. There you see Parker White, Blake Reynolds. Blake is just, I think it kind of confirms my theory here, just kind of sitting, chilling out behind Parker, saving some fuel, and hopefully having a shorter pit stop when the time comes.
Just to remind everybody, in 2 weeks' time, we can see the European swing here. We go from the Nürburgring over to Silverstone for round number 7 of 8, the penultimate round in 2 weeks' time. That's going to be right here on FTF.GG, and it's going to be a fun one to watch. As there you see Robichaux working his way down the pit lane. He had some strategic weight reduction, I guess you could call it, as he lost his hood there. And
strategic weight reduction.
It looks like, did he get a fast repair there? I didn't think that they were on for the series. Maybe it's just the way the car was repaired. Huh. Did you hear that correct, Zach? That there's no limit to fast repairs? Okay, so I didn't think that was a thing, but he's back out there.
Thank you for joining us, Chad. I appreciate it. Appreciate you being here, knowing the rule book in and out.
I'm supposed to know it, but apparently I don't.
So again, as I kept alluding to, Blake Reynolds just going to sit behind Parker White. How long before Parker figures out what Blake is doing? Because Parker, I guess, was in the slipstream for a long time. Maybe he had a chance to save some fuel. So Blake catching note of that and maybe doing the same thing. So we're going to see how the strategy plays out as we inch ever so closer to halfway through this thing, just over 10 minutes away from the halfway point in this thing.
Yeah, Parker White out front is just pulling the Forrest Gump. I may not be a smart man, but I know what fuel saving is. That's how it goes, right?
I don't think he said it exactly like that, but the premise was the same.
So still White from Reynolds for the time being. We just saw that was Robichaux leaving the pits after taking his repair. So he's back out there, and these front 4 still all pretty close. They're all within drafting range at least. Powers might be losing that now, because he's almost a second back, and they got a big gap back to Marshbanks there in 5th. So a couple of pretty big gaps in the field. Let's take a look further back here. Let's look at Ray Kingsbury and Jonathan Taylor currently battling for the 6th spot, because I keep on mixing up Taylor Carroll and Jonathan Taylor.
One of the Taylors.
One of the Taylors, But they were pretty close not long ago. Kind of gap has put a couple car lengths between them, but still, you also have Kevin Fanning and Lance Nasir there as well. So all 4 of these guys all battling for position. 3 of the 4 are also the pro category drivers. And I think for for Jonathan Taylor is he's got 6 seconds on Brock Quinn. So that's 6 seconds in the AM category with 2 cars in between them as well. I think that's kind of the big thing for these guys is,
Wow.
you know, you have 2 cars in between them. That's the 25 of Ray Kingsbury giving up a ton of positions there. I think he must have had a slowdown for that to happen.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. So that was definitely one of the weirder things for that. He might lose the draft here to Lance Nasir and Kevin Fanning. Haven't done that. We'll see if he can cling on to it. So not sure why that's happening. That's a heck of a way to serve a slowdown there. Just do it all at once. But if that's the case, he's going to be stuck in the, I guess, no man's land for a bit. But he's able to kind of lock on to Lance Nasir a little bit. So he should be okay to kind of cling on to these guys. But back up front here, we still see the status quo of the race so far. Parker White leading Blake Reynolds.
Yeah, this is a battle I don't think we'll see go away anytime soon. They've got about a second and just over a second and a quarter back to Taylor Carroll now. So he is out of the slipstream range, I do believe. And I think that Powers is barely hanging on to Carroll's slipstream as well. So those guys kind of getting themselves settled out for the time being. But battle up front still wages on.
So Blake getting a little bit too close there, but he's going to just stay tucked behind in to Parker White. So no harm, no foul there as they head into what Blake calls a NASCAR corner as they make their way through. Blake just going to kind of stick right to the rear bumper of Parker. No harm done. And they're actually pulling away from Taylor. So this is a good strategy call both for fuel saving and for Blake's overall race pace. So got to know Blake, one of the smartest drivers out there. He knows what he's doing, and I think his strategy is working to perfection here.
Yeah, and with that, we've crossed 1/3 distance, 38 minutes to go. And with that, we'll take a short break. We'll be back with 40 more minutes of action here on FTF.gg. And back to the hamburger ring we go with White still leading the field just ahead of Blake Reynolds. They've got still about a 2-second gap back to Taylor Carroll. So those front two still battling pretty hard. This is the 021 of Valenzuela that I think is serving a slowdown penalty himself as he continues to work his way around. And we've seen him kind of, not the best performance we've seen out of him. He's, 14th right now. And he continues to cycle around just behind Wetz and Marwan Mafta there in 12th, 13th.
Saw him get almost all 4 wheels off the track there coming off the corner. That was a scary moment, especially with all the crashes we've seen because of that. And speaking of, he gets all 4 wheels off the track there. He's going to take the cones out. He's going to save it. He does. That's an interesting last couple corners there for Tommy.
Yeah, he continues just to have some fun out there, and these guys up at the front are having some fun between the two of them as they think that Blake, you mentioned earlier, I think he's content just sitting in second, saving some fuel and kind of just waiting things out.
We have gotten very, very far spread apart as Tommy Joe has pulled off going into turn number 1, and I think he's going to park that number 021 Porsche, and it's a rough sequence of events there the last couple of corners for him. So that's another retiree from the race eventually. So it looks like we'll be up to 4 drivers that are going to be on the shelf after this one.
Yep, so still up the front, no changes. Further on back, I think that for the most part, things have kind of settled themselves out. We've got a couple of kind of groups of cars that are pretty close to each other. Nasir, Jonathan Taylor, and Kevin Fanning all pretty close to each other on track. That's for 6th, 7th, and 8th. They're involving the 007, 77, and 441. There's a car off to the wide there. Is that Freeman again?
Is that Gary Freeman again? It is. What happened to Gary this time? I'm going to assume it's another lack of grip adventure through the final corner, and sure enough it was. I got it pulled up on my screen, and he just kind of sat there in disbelief. So watch the Ferrari here going through the final corner.
Just a nice lazy spin.
It's been that way for Gary the whole night, and he eventually just pulls it back a little bit, just reverses it off the track, and he'll just sit there and just be like, man, what do I have to do to get this car to turn for me? And I think Gary's finally waved the white flag, and he's brought it into the pits. So you saw Ray Kingsbury go by, though, in the Penguin RC Mercedes number 25. So could this be our first scheduled pit stop of the race?
It very well could be. You might just be trying to get risky with strategy, see what he can pull out here. Tommy Joe Valenzuela has retired from the race himself, so he's going to finish, I believe, in the 19th spot, depending on how many times Gary Freeman continues to lap the circuit. That could make things interesting. It's only going to be one position, but it's going to be a couple extra points there for whoever finishes higher.
So Ray's going to come out right ahead of Tim Brokaw in the 15th position. So we're going to see just how much this huge undercut from Ray works. So he's got about 10 seconds to Sabian Raxter ahead of him, so he might gain maybe 1 or 2 spots. So that'd be something to pay attention to here, as we're still got our eyes locked on this battle here. This is overall for P6. You see Lance Nasir, Jonathan Taylor, and Kevin Fanning right here. So nothing much else happening on the track right now. Very healthy gaps between some of the cars. So of course, we've documented our lead battle between Parker White and Blake Reynolds, but that is a big strategy play right now, so nothing doing up there. So this is the closest racing we've got on the track right now.
And by the way, this could be a pretty big shakeup in the points as well. Ray Kingsbury came into the race with a 43-point lead over Michael Gonzalez, and I think Gonzalez, we said, is not here. We haven't called his name yet tonight. Matt Kingsbury came into the event in 3rd, and he is retired from the event. Cody Crosgrove, we mentioned him, unfortunately, involved in a real-world accident this week, and just got to say, get better soon to you, Cody, this week. Nate Stewart, who was 5th in the points, he is not here tonight. So next up is Kevin Fanning, who's currently in the 8th position. So, Ray Kingsbury might not be having his best night of the season, but he's still finding ways to get things done and continue on.
You'd rather be lucky than good at some points here. But Ray, good thing for Ray, he is both that. So got no troubles there. So kind of keeps putting himself in the right positions here. So he's going to come out of this not too badly scathed if he doesn't have a good race. So Ray definitely going to be in good shape here after this, as we look back on board with Blake Reynolds just staring right at Parker White. And they have built about a 3.1 second gap over Taylor Carroll. So these two definitely playing the strategy right of pulling away from the field as we look back to Blake Reynolds. Going to probably memorize what the rear of that 095 looks like at Parker White. He's going to be very acclimated with that as this race goes along.
Pit lane time for Kingsbury was just under 42 seconds, and that's something to keep a note of, as drivers can add a little bit of a delta time onto that for them getting in and out on their hot laps. But overall, about 42 seconds is the Delta maybe a little more, probably about 50 seconds, I would say, is what drivers need to be looking out for when they work their way down the pit lane. But so far, the only driver to do so has been Kingsbury in terms of a scheduled pit stop. Looks like Brokaw's worked his way down the pit lane as well. So he is currently in his stall. I'm not sure that he had any trouble, but he's been there for a significant amount of time. Did something happen there to the 111?
You see Blake Reynolds got tired of looking at Parker White. He must have heard me, so he retakes the lead here. I think maybe thinks he saved a good amount of fuel. So now that he's done this, he's going to probably try his best to drive away from Parker and see if he can get a couple good in-laps to make his pit stop. We're just over halfway through this race, 28 minutes left out of 60 minutes total in this race. So I think this is where Blake is going to start to execute the strategy, get as far away from Parker White as he can to get us in and out of pit road as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, so still Brokaw leading the way. He worked his way out of pit lane in the 111 as he was there for 24 seconds in his box. So he took some additional service to get some work done on that car, but he is back underway and still up front, though. You mentioned it, this Reynolds and White battle not going away. I don't think it's going to be much of a battle for now because Reynolds back out front, and I think that these guys both are just like, all right, you can lead, I'll lead. We'll both save some fuel, we'll have some fun out there, and leave it to the last stint to see who's really going to be the victor.
Now, if I'm Parker White here, I see what Blake's trying to do now. I think I would perform the undercut here not right away maybe, but to maybe kind of force Blake's hand to maybe say like, all right, you're going to try to pull away from me. I'm going to pit right now or maybe the next lap. So that'll force you to make a pit stop earlier than you think. So might not look like a very exciting race on the track right now, but it's kind of a mental game between these two guys now. So when do you pull off for pit road? And if you're Parker White, do you take the risk of coming in early to maybe force Blake's hand? So we'll see how this plays out, but I would maybe expect these guys to be coming in the next handful of laps or so.
And the big thing I think about an undercut is you really need to have the clean track, the fresh air on exit to be able to run some clean laps, not have to battle with anybody, to see a couple more takers down the pit lane. So for your two leaders, I mentioned about a 50-second pit lane delta. Well, that would put them right in the mix of Mofta, Wet, Son, Ragster, even maybe Ray Kingsbury. So all of those guys would just be right back up in the fray, at least for the time being, until they made their pit stops. So you might want to try to wait things out and make other drivers make their stops as both Fanning and Nasir work their way. You just saw them on the pit lane. So who's going to stop next? Have to wait and see. And who's going to blink first between Reynolds and White?
12 cars still yet to pit in this one, so we're going to be seeing that number dwindle down as more and more we go. So you see more drivers coming out of the pit lane right now. Kevin Fanning will win the race off pit road from Lance Nasir. So Fanning was about 3 seconds quicker than Nasir Delta. Kevin Fanning was about 41 seconds, Lance Nasir 44. So that is a big time loss for Lance Nasir. He cannot be happy about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So it's going to be fun to watch these last 26 minutes. And I think Tim Brokaw, yes, he has parked it for the race. So unfortunately, he has decided to hang it up. And he's going to come home in, I believe, the 18th position. He might be pushed back to 19th, depending on...
Blake.
Is Gary Freeman still... there you see Blake running down the pit entry lane. But I think Gary Freeman's still out there logging laps. So good for him, just trying to do as much as he can out there on track. But yeah, Blake Reynolds, you mentioned, is down the pit lane. We'll have to wait and see where he comes out, because he's going to lose a couple of spots here. I think that he's going to file right into traffic when he leaves the pit lane.
No, I think this might be a little bit of a curveball on Blake's side, because he didn't really put the distance on Parker White that he thought he would. So maybe he thought he would perform his own undercut and force Parker's hand. So we should be seeing Parker coming into the pit lane this time to kind of counteract that pit stop from Blake Reynolds. So we're going to see how good of an in-lap Parker gets to see if he can maintain his lead or just stay as close to Blake as he can. But history has shown us usually with these races that the undercut usually would give you the advantage if you're going through the pit cycles.
15 seconds in the box. He's back underway and out there in the 8th position. He's just in front of Marwan Mofta. He's actually got about a 16-second gap back to Mofta, so considerable gap there. And he is 2.5 seconds or so behind Robert Lowry. So he's got a bit of some clean track. He might have some slipstream here in a bit from Lowry to help him out even more. But overall, I think that Reynolds, he's kind of just forced the hand of Parker White, see what Parker does, and hopefully, we'll have some intense battling for the last half of this race.
And you got to think Parker's coming in this time. So if Blake comes in last time, Parker, you really can't stay out an extra lap on those tires compared to Blake's new ones. So Parker should be seeing him ducking onto pit road. I would be very surprised to see him not do that. But right now, Parker has to get a perfect pit entry, stop, and exit to maintain this lead. So we'll see what he does as he comes through the Vidal chicane here. And there he goes, ducking onto pit road. So Parker needs to execute perfectly to maintain this lead here. We'll see what he can do.
15.5 on the gun for Blake Reynolds. 39.7 was the pit lane time from in to out. Have to see what Parker White does here. It's a long pit lane as he works his way past all the Formula One garages, and definitely going to be interesting to watch where he blends out. Right now, Blake Reynolds working his way on the back half of his lap, coming up towards, I believe he's coming up to the chicane right now. Yes, he is. So Blake through the penultimate corners. Now through the final corner. Have to wait and see when Parker White. So he is now out of his box, and that was a very quick stop. 12.3 for Parker compared to 15.5 for Reynolds.
Parker's going to get out in front here.
By a considerable margin, yeah.
Wow.
That was a short stop, though. It was 3 seconds quicker in the box for White, so have to see how that plays out. Did he put enough fuel in it? I would hope so, but we've seen drivers make that mistake before.
I believe Blake Reynolds and Lance Nasir have the same pit crew. They are teammates, of course, and we saw Lance Nasir lose 3 seconds to the car that was ahead of him. Same thing with Blake Reynolds. So both of the Penguin RC Porsches have some hills to climb to make up some positions after the pit stops, but both of them are fast enough. And Blake's got some lap traffic. Well, not lap traffic. This is for position. They just haven't pit yet. Robert Lowry and the popular Ford GT, as we mentioned at the start of the main race, and he's kind of stuck behind him. So this is good for Parker White. Parker's got that clean air to get up front, but right now he's just got to wait on Matthew Powers, John Marshbanks, and Jonathan Taylor in the top 3 to make their stops.
And you'll notice the headlights starting to pop on some of these cars. Current time in sim is 6:15 p.m. on today's current date. So sun is starting to set, but I think that we'll mostly finish still under the sunset. The golden hour here at the Nürburgring, and I think that that's going to set up for some interesting racing. I think that some of the drivers really, loved racing in the dark last week, and some of the drivers really hated it. So we'll have to see how that plays out for these guys.
Marshbanks on pit road, Jonathan Taylor also on pit road, so second and third make their way down to get their pit stops done, and Matthew Powers still out there in that number 37 BMW. So Blake Reynolds passing Brock Quinn. Brock Quinn makes his pit stop. So now is going to be where we see Parker White and Reynolds move their way into the podium spot. So Matthew Powers, unless he only takes fuel or a splash of fuel or something, he might lose a considerable amount of time to Parker and Blake, but we'll see where this shakes out.
Now, I have to say for Matthew Powers, he might be doing it on strategy, but I'm pretty sure these are the first laps that he's led all season. So he's out there and he's just having some fun with it. You might as well, if he's going to end up having to make his stop still. But I mean, in the meantime,
time.
Yeah, exactly. Make the Hulu sponsors go have some fun, because you know what they have? Hulu has live sports.
Does it? I haven't heard that at all. Anytime I've watched a football game or anything, I don't think I've seen Baker Mayfield enough in those commercials. Maybe they'll put Matthew in there now, as we got another car around. I believe.
Savian Ragster in the 91. He's going to lose 2 spots there. Drops down to 11th, right behind Lance Nasir. And Lance, to see him rocking the Penguin RC colors, and have to thank Penguin RC for everything that they do. They make button boxes and wheels and all kinds of sim racing and remote control accessories. So shout out to Brian Son and Penguin RC for helping sponsor the series and put this thing on. And if you need a quality button box or a new steering wheel, check them out, because they do actually make some really good stuff.
And you could use that button box to activate a pit limiter on these cars, as Matthew Powers is doing now from the lead. Oh, we got trouble right here.
Oh, and that's a huge accordion effect. That was a 71. Chris Wetz started that one.
Lance Nasir. Oh, what happened there?
we'll have to take a look at the replay, but so look at Powers now coming into his pit stall.
I'm going to look at a replay for myself here, and we'll see it here. I think this starts with Chris Wetzel. That was a separate incident. That was something. It's a 93 there, Justin Robichaud.
Little off-road in there for Justin.
So here's Chris Wetz. He gets into the corner just with a lot of speed, and that wing on the back of that car is large, but not large enough to keep the rear.
Oh, he's got to hold the brakes. The stewards are not going to be happy about that one. He was on the outside of the track. He would have been fine. And then he just slid all the way across to the inside of the racetrack. That's just unfortunate to see there from the 71.
And Chris just came across the race chat. He said, "That's my bad, flipped F3," which is the relative command in iRacing. That tells you your interval to the cars ahead and behind you. Flip that, and he said it looked clear for a second, and unfortunately it was not clear enough.
I got to say, I like what those headlights do when that Ford is on the pit limiter. It really makes the car look that much more beautiful.
You were just all over these Fords, man. I got to say, like I said earlier, more drivers need to run them. As not only are they fun to drive, they sound great, but they also look good when the lights come on.
I've seen Ford versus Ferrari one too many times, no big deal.
Just a few.
Yep,
Big Christian Bale guy.
I remember when they waved the green flag at the Indy 500 to kind of promote that movie. A friend that I brought was very excited because they were waving the green flag. I was like, oh, okay. I'm just here for the race.
Gary Freeman went around again in turn 4. He gathers
Gary
it back up, going. Man, we've harped on it all night. There's something with the Ferraris and some of the setups that they have. It's not only been Gary, but we saw Tim Brokaw have the same issue with just not having any rear grip in the Ferraris. So that's a tough break for them, as we're still focused on Taylor Carroll and that 420. This isn't Taylor Carroll. I'm not looking at the right person. That is Robert Lowry in the 7 with the Ford GT. We've been looking at it ahead to Brock Quinn in the 005 BMW. So very two different cars here. That BMW is massive compared to that Ford GT, but definitely two good looking cars out here for sure. But if I had to choose, I'd probably try to drive the GT. I think, as I said, more people should.
Well, aren't these all GTs?
Kind of.
GT3s?
Yes, they are, but the GT is the only one that actually has GT in its name, so we'll stick with that. Meanwhile, up front here, we want to touch on this. We haven't really said anything since the pit stops, but Parker White has a 2.3 second lead over Blake Reynolds when it's all said and done with the pit stops. So
it's slowly been coming down, though. So Blake Reynolds trying to cut into that lead, but will he do it? 15 minutes left to do so. I don't know if he's got enough time, but speaking of 16 minutes left, we'll take a short break here and be back for the final 15 or so minutes right here on ftf.gg. And back to the Nürburgring for the final 15 minutes here of the Penguin RC Simulations SimCAR Grand Am Championship Series. And these guys working their way down the laps, starting to dwindle. And the lead still about 2.3 seconds for White over Reynolds as we continue to get closer and closer. But just hammering the curbs in the 095. Man, that's some aggressive driving right there.
Parker White is putting up some of the best laps we've seen him put up in this race. So his best lap is a 153.7 in this race so far. He's put up 2 personal bests in that lead position there. So he's looking to seal this win, but he's got Blake Reynolds behind him running quicker lap times. Blake was about 0.3 faster than Parker that last lap. So if Blake can get to within 1.2 seconds, that is going to be the difference, as he'll have the slipstream and he'll be able to reel Parker White in on these long straightaways. And then the battle is really going to be on for the win in this thing. Coming up to the lap car, Justin Robichaux. But Parker, don't get too comfortable. This race is far from over.
Gary Freeman, he has lost it twice in about the last 45 seconds. He's had himself a day. I think he's just trying to get the Artisan car as much screen time as he possibly can, because I mean, it looks good. It's got a sick paint job, but I don't think that's the way you want to go about it. But there, bud.
Whatever notes they have on the setup of that thing, they need to throw them out, burn them, do something, because that car has just been evil all night for not only Gary, but for Tim Brokaw as well. Both of those guys just having fits trying to keep those cars going in the right direction.
Yeah, currently 8 laps down in 19th spot. If he completes this lap, though, he'll get ahead of Tim. So he's getting himself there, but I don't think he's going to have time to get anybody else, because he runs very slow, very wide there, and just a little bit of a wiggle. And yeah, I mean, he does finally get past Brokaw. He's up into 18th, and he's 3 laps behind Lance Sincere.
And back up front here as we turn our attention to the race for the lead. Parker White able to get around Robichaux, the lap vehicle there. That's not for position, that BMW. Blake Reynolds, though, that's going to help him a lot, because he's going to pick up the draft from Robichaux, and that's going to slow this, that's going to enhance his drive up to the lead even more. So more speed for Blake Reynolds on the straightaways especially is going to be key. As long as he can get by the lap car cleanly, that's not what Parker White's going to want to see, as the lead is now down to under 2 seconds.
Yeah, and he's going to want to continue just to use that draft as much as possible. I think that Blake, once he gets past... Oh no! I don't think that Blake was expecting him to turn in like that, and unfortunately for him, he's going to lose a considerable amount of time. He's still holding on to the position for now. No, that's going to be Carroll going by, and then Blake rejoins. That's dangerous there. Whew, that was Powers that just squeezed by. Man, that was some frantic driving there.
Oh, man. And if you're the lap car adjuster Robichaux, you got to think that Blake is fighting for the win. If he's close enough, he's going to want to send it in and get by you as quickly as possible. Here it is. We might be able to get a better view on board with Blake, but we'll see. Robichaux. Oh, he caught the grass. He tried to stay as wide as he could, but that just knocked the car loose just a little bit.
Yeah, there was that
into the corner.
Bit of a bob. We've seen that 5 or 6 times so far tonight, and it's just unfortunate. Look how much track they use there. That's just incredible how much they're able to get away with. They watch these right side tires just over the line. Yep, and that just slight wiggle and nowhere for Reynolds to go, losing a couple of spots down to 4th, and unfortunately the debut for Reynolds in the GT is not going his way after that one.
That'll all but seal the win for Parker White. He's got to do a lot to relinquish the lead. He's
a hard impact for Gary Freeman this time.
He's got a 15-second advantage over Taylor Carroll, and I think, as much as I hate to say this, but I think it might be time for Gary Freeman to retire that car, and I think he's going to do just that. Unfortunately, Gary, like we said, fighting terrible handling conditions in that car the whole race, and I think he's about waved the white flag on this one. So tough break for Gary, but he'll go get him next time. But right now, Blake Reynolds trying his best to at least salvage something, as he's going to lose another spot, and Reynolds coming to get.
He works his way down the
tires.
pit lane. Yeah, he's going to take that fast repair, and it's interesting to see because I don't know how much damage there was to that car. It didn't seem like it was significant, but I guess if there was enough, then that's enough for him to park it.
Is there an incentive for fastest lap in this series as well? Maybe
there is not, unfortunately.
I mean, I think we might have to look into that for this, because that would give Blake something to run for, I guess, with this one. But I'm looking further back to the field. The only kind of enticing battle we have right now is for 6th, with Jonathan Taylor and Ray Kingsbury right here, and we got these two fighting out. So, man, that's such a tough break for Blake right there. I knew I was going to mix those two words up. But hate to see lap traffic get involved in a race like this, and fortunately, this is one of those deals.
I think for Jonathan Taylor as well is, he's got Kingsbury fighting with him, but he's got 5 seconds back to Brock Quinn for the AM class victory. So he can let Kingsbury go by and not worry too much. The more that he battles, all it's going to let is the 005 catch back up to him.
That's if they get to battling aggressively. I think if we see Taylor, he's just going to let him go, as you said, maybe try the crossover as he does. He does it very well, actually, but Kingsbury is going to have the preferred line to the inside here.
But he goes very wide and he gets him. Oh, man. What is going on here these last 15 minutes?
Everyone's trying to get as much as they can there, and unfortunately for Kingsbury, just pushed it a little too hard, got a little too wide, and we've been a broken record about the off-track traction or lack thereof in this race, and that's another instance.
I mentioned, he's got all the brakes going for him in the championship standings there for Kingsbury, and I think well, I mean, even if I'm jinxing it, he's still, the next 4 guys in the points are all not here. Gonzo isn't here. Kingsbury is out. Crosgrove is out. Stewart's not here. So Kevin Fanning is the only driver in the top 5 that's still out there on track, and he's currently 5th. So he's only going to lose a couple of points to him, but he's got a considerable gap to just about the rest of the field.
Speaking of championship, Blake Reynolds is still in his pit stall. So I don't know if he's going to not come back out for the last few minutes, try to salvage something, but I think he might be parking that car for the rest of the race.
Well, I'm not sure, and I'd have to check with the official leadership discussion on this, but I believe that they basically just handed him the prototype championship based on the insurmountable lead that he had in that category. So I don't know in points wise if he has much to race for. I'm not entirely sure what the specifics are to that.
We will see eventually, but if I know Blake like I think I do, he wants to come out here and win every race he's in, and if he's not up front battling for lead at the end and gets wrecked like that, he's not all that happy about it. I mean, I wouldn't be either if I was in his shoes. But tough break for him. But as you said, he's got his championship points to fall back on. He's been here every week, and this is about the only adversity we've seen him have to go through this season. So if it's anything, it'd be a little bit of a sting for me for that. But Blake has nothing to be ashamed of his drive this season so far. He's been almost perfect every week.
Yeah, we've seen him be very consistent. He's between balancing this and eNASCAR, Coca-Cola Series, and everything he does. I think he said he's getting ready to hang up the gloves in the eNASCAR side of things and start focusing on doing whatever he wants to do at this point. And I think that he's kind of earned that right, as there you see the 77 of Jonathan Taylor and Brock Quinn now battling very hard. I was surprised. Maybe we missed something. Did I miss something here? These guys have caught up to each other pretty quick.
Brock Quinn they're on the same tires, which is odd. They're both on lap 8 of their stint right here. So Taylor, like we said, has had speed all season. He's been top 10 to top 5 pace every single week in that AM class. So right now, this is the most enticing race to watch right here. This is for the AM class lead and supposedly win. So coming down to 5 minutes left, there is a race for the win still going on. Here comes Quinn to the inside, or outside, I should say, as they make their way into NASCAR turn. I'm going to keep calling it that for Blake. It seems like that high line, though, is preferred there. You saw the run that Brock Quinn got using the banking, and I don't know. I mean, it looks like Taylor just doesn't have the grip that Quinn does.
I'm kind of surprised to see that. It's not like you get, a good launch off the corner. It's not like you see at the Parabolico where you can take the outside line and just get that extreme launch off the corner. There's such a short run to the next turn off of that turn that, I'm surprised that he gets that good of a launch, but, that allows Brock Quinn to get by, and he's into the AM category lead.
I'm saying, man, we need more banked corners at road courses. We see Zandvoort, they just put a huge one in very recently.
Well, relatively huge. Come on now.
Relatively huge, but more banked corners in road courses wouldn't be a surprise to see that. But
I don't know. I mean, the U.S. Grand Prix, was it 2006? Does that ring any bells to you?
It does. I'm not going to go into that, but oh man, look!
Wow!
I think the main culprit is damage for Jonathan Taylor, because whenever the contact happened between the two cars here, Taylor just hasn't had the speed. I think the damage is probably why Blake pit when he got into his incident. So damage is really hindering that number 77. But he's taking it to Ray Kingsbury still here. So this battle started, and it is a couple laps later, still far from over between these two.
Oh, I wonder if we can get an onboard here with Jonathan Taylor. He's got significant steering damage. That is what's causing his issue.
Oh, no, Robert.
Oh, wow. That was Lowry almost making things dicey.
Can we get an onboard with Robert, producer Zach, if we can? I want to see if he's got a front row seat to these two. So take a listen to this GT as well. Love the sounds of this. But, yeah, definitely that 77 is hurt very badly.
Let's move up a car and see with Jonathan Taylor the onboard with him as well, because that's the car. His steering is offset. He's right hand down about 20 degrees. And
look at that.
When he's got the wheel straight, he's turning left. So
you can see just how bad it is. You can't see the steering wheel. Now you see it as we pan over a little bit. But that wheel, when we hit a straightaway, should be going straight. And it's definitely not. So look at how much he has to turn to get that thing.
I feel like he might snap an arm trying to get that much turning input into it.
And this thing is very tough to drive,
As it is.
And with that, it's kind of like when that happens in any car on iRacing, pretty much, it feels like it's like a table with two shorter legs. It just wobbles, and it's hard to keep control of. So Taylor's going to have his hands full with the last minute and a half of this thing. But should have to go maybe, I think, 2 more laps before he can finally pull that car off.
Yeah, Parker White out in front. He's getting set. I think he's going to take the white flag here in just a minute. I don't think he's taken it yet.
Got a minute left, so it should be the white flag this time. Can't get, of course, 2 laps in a minute. But Parker White, like we said, the strategy really paid off. So he got into pit road flawlessly, out of pit road flawlessly, 3 seconds quicker than Blake Reynolds did, and that was the difference. I mean, you think if he has about the same pit stop as Blake does, he might find himself in the same predicament as Blake. So hats off to Parker for having quite a flawless race here.
Yeah, he's run a fantastic race and played the strategy to his favor, and he's there with the white flag with an 18-second lead over Taylor Carroll. And then you got Matthew Powers on the last step of the podium. Brock Quinn currently leads in the AM category in the 005 after the steering issues that we saw for Jonathan Taylor. And Brian Son is 15 seconds behind him, third in the AM category. So I don't think that Son's going to be able to make up that much time. But with Gary significant damage, something happened. And Gary Freeman's go, oh, Gary. Gary. Now I need. We've kind of been avoiding his replays, but I kind of want to see that one at some point.
Oh my God, that is a hellacious wreck. We'll get to in a minute, I would assume. But I saw Gary was going 0 miles per hour, and then I clicked on his name. He was into what we saw the picture there. So that is, oh man.
Not entirely sure what has happened to Gary here today, but we'll have to. We'll have to have some words.
That's not how they wanted that car to come back to them after this race was done, I can assure you that.
No, I think it does better with the rubber side down, but this is a look at your leader. And that's Parker White, the 095, and been a fantastic drive for him here tonight. The headlights starting to kick on and, actually take effect there. You see him kind of flashing on the ground as he comes around the final couple of corners and gets set to wrap up his victory, his first victory, I do believe, on the season. Through the chicane, one final corner to go. And Parker White with the victory from the Nürburgring. Fantastic racing there. This is further back. The battle for the second position now. This has popped up out of nowhere. This is Matthew Powers, and through the final corner, that's Powers trying to force it up the inside, and that was a heck of a move, but can't do anything with it. As Taylor Carroll takes second, Matthew Powers gets third.
And we'll go back and take a look at Brock Quinn in the AM category, leading. Got nobody in front or behind him. That's very close anyway. There you see him making his way through the Bilstein curve, going down to Advan at turn 13, and he's got smooth sailing to the checkered flag for the AM category win. He'll make his way to the Vidal chicane and the Hyundai N curve and wrap this race up for him.
Through the chicane, the final corner, and he takes the victory over Jonathan Taylor. Unfortunate for Taylor, as he just did not have a solid finish after collecting that damage, but that hands the victory to Brock Quinn, the 005, and fantastic bit of racing there for Brock. And then you got Ray Kingsbury going to take home the 7th spot. This is a look at Gary Freeman. Let's see what happened here.
I went back and watched this, and I think, I don't know, just we'll lay out here. The car's broke already.
It's already crabbing, yep.
Yeah, just wanted to just finish it off, I guess. I don't know.
That car's already been through enough, so just slowly playing taps and Gary's asking for some style points there from the stewards. So
he's going to need as many points as he can get so that crew can pay for the damages to that car. But that's, oh man, that was. I'll give him style points. Why not? He made it exciting with that to finish the car off at the last point. Here you see the final results ticking through your screen here.
Fantastic bit of racing all around as we get set for some driver interviews. And I believe, is this Parker?
That's Chris Wetz.
This is Chris Wetz. I thought this was Parker. Parker's trying to join the booth, but where did Chris Wetz go? I don't even know. Where's Parker at? He said he's trying to join the. I'm trying to give everybody powers here. So what the heck am I doing?
You're doing your best. And that's
right. This Discord, I'm an old man. I'm a boomer. Anyway, we'll try to figure things out here. There's Parker. Hey, Parker, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Hey, it was a fantastic race for you. You had some fun battling there for a while with Blake Reynolds. What was all that battling like?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I was saving fuel at the same time, so it was kind of hard to race. So Blake let me go at one point, and I was on the clutch, so I kept slowing down. So eventually I just hit the gas. I overdrove the corner a bit, but from there I was able to lead a few laps, and eventually Blake went past me again, so I did a little more fuel saving. Then Blake pit. I still had about 6 laps of fuel left, but I thought I'd pit the next lap, so I did. I probably took a little less fuel than Blake did because I got out like 2.5 seconds ahead of him, and then I saw that lap car took him out, which was unfortunate because that's going to be a good battle if he got up there. But in the sprint race, I was struggling a ton with front end turn and dirty air, so I made a setup change, and it felt pretty good. It had a little bit of oversteer, but it felt fine. So I was able to go from 10th, and as soon as I got up to 3rd, I just started saving and made sure I didn't overheat the tires, and that put me in a good spot.
The car track combo worked, seemed like to a very good combination. We had some fantastic battling. You talked about you and Blake throughout the race and a couple of other battles throughout the field. But what were your thoughts on how the car raced here?
It actually felt pretty good. I haven't really driven the Porsche that much, but with how OP it is and the new BOP settings for Season 4, it felt good. It was a little bit understeery, but with it being good on tires in the long run, it felt much better at the end of the run, because short run I was just struggling for front grip, but at the end it felt fine.
Yeah, it was definitely a fantastic bit of racing from you, and fortunately the strategy and the downfall, of course, of Blake with his incident with the lap car took him out, but you got your victory first. I think it's your first victory of the season, is that right? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it feels really good. It's my first race and my first win, so it was nice to win on my first start.
So looking ahead, we're at we just looked it up. Silverstone, I believe it is, in 2 weeks' time. So, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that should be a pretty fun race. I should be there. I'd imagine the Porsche is going to be really good as always, because it's really good on tires, like I said. So I'll just run a few laps for practice and see how we stack up.
Well, hey, congratulations on the victory. Anybody you want to thank?
Yeah, I just got to thank you guys at FTF for the broadcast. I have to thank Apex Racing Academy. Yeah, that's about it.
Well, congratulations on the victory, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right, thank you.
That's Parker White, the overall winner here tonight. And Sean, it looks like you've caught up with Brock Quinn.
Well, Brock, man, that win kind of fell into your lap a little bit, but you had to put a whole race together to get to that point. So, I mean, we saw a lot of guys struggle with the handling on their cars, especially. So, how was your guys set up in comparison to everybody else? It looked like you guys went for more like balanced kind of strategy there.
Yeah, hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, we're actually using a Fuji setup tonight, so it was a little interesting. It's a lot more balanced during the sprint, but it was pretty good overall. I'm not sure what happened at the end there. I think Jonathan maybe got some damage or something, trying to fight me, but he didn't have the pace at the end.
Yeah, he and Kingsbury got together a little bit there at the end there, and that kind of did a lot of maybe terminal damage to Jonathan's car. He was let's just say he was about 20 degrees or so cocked to the right there, so it was a little bit tough on him. But you had to keep your BMW out of trouble all race. You did a very good job. You almost got an overall top 5 here, so that's going to be very good for you going down the line. So what was the overall strategy for you guys in terms of pit cycles? Did you guys have a certain lap that you guys were committed to pitting on, or were you just going to wait and see what everybody in front of you did?
For me, it was just a full tank of gas until I ran out, and then enough fuel to get to the finish line. It was pretty straightforward strategy.
Definitely. So keep it simple. That's always a good thing there. So we just asked Parker. With this one, we're going to ask you the same thing. So Silverstone in 2 weeks there. So think we can make it 2 in a row there?
I think I was pretty lucky this week, but we'll see how we go.
Well, nonetheless, man, you still got the W. So job well done. So before we let you go, what do you want to say hi to or thank for your performance tonight?
For sure. Yeah, obviously want to say thank you to Away from Planet, our main sponsor. Thanks to the team. I know some of the guys on the team had a pretty rough night tonight, but all in all, we'll come together and race again for Silverstone.
Absolutely. Well, Brock, congratulations, man. Heck of a race you put together, and we'll go get him at Silverstone in 2 weeks' time. Congratulations.
Cheers, guys. Have a good night.
That's Brock Quinn there, Chad. Back over to you.
Yeah, fantastic bit of races. Wrap things up. Of course, you had Parker White, the overall win. Brock Quinn doing the same in the AM category. And Sean, we had some fantastic racing. Any final thoughts from you?
We did. I mean, it was. I didn't think that using the Fuji setup would be a viable option, but after Brock said that, I'm like, yeah, they're two similar tracks. I'm surprised I didn't think of that sooner. So it's a good call by them to kind of put that setup in. It's something they're familiar with and similar track styles, long straightaways, tight corners. So very good call there. But it was a fun race. I mean, we saw literally everything from wrecks to hard racing to flipping cars at the end. So I mean, this had everything. So a very good contested race, a lot of drama at the end, implications, and checked all the boxes, I would say, as far as the race goes.
Yeah, so some fantastic racing here tonight, and we'll do the same thing in 2 weeks' time from Silverstone back to the sprint and feature format that we ran here, and it's going to be some fun racing. But for everybody to help put the show on, from Blake Reynolds and Ray Kingsbury and Brian Son and Penguin RC for their sponsorship of the series, as well as Christian Ost and Complex SimWorks, and everybody else that helps put this thing on. For Sean Butler and for Zach Johnson, I'm Chad Irvine. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time right here on FTF.GG.